Another in a long list. You guys are off to Treviso tomorrow?
I'm not, but yeah,
You're not per se.
Masai, Jeff, and Patrick, our international scout, they're headed out there.
Will you guys be doing stuff here still, or?
No, we're going to take a few days off, wait till those guys get back, and then we'll pick up again on Monday.
What does a day off for you guys look like right now? Because I imagine it's not what a day off for most looks like.
No, for myself, I'm going to be busy trying to finalize all our workouts next week. So there's a lot of still puzzle piecing together, and it's a lot of back and forth phone calls with agents just to try to get as many top players as we can in here.
The Treviso camp, as I understand it, is generally more of a forward-looking thing. I think there's only 3 guys that are really on the draft radar this year.
Yeah.
What are your guys looking for when they head over there?
Every year it's a good way to see the young crop of talent for future drafts, and then it's more than anything a chance to just kind of put guys on our radar going forward and kind of see who do we probably need to start thinking about scouting for next season and things like that. It's kind of more of a convention of higher ups for like GMs and such of NBA teams to kind of get away from the NBA media and whatnot, and they kind of reconvene over there and there's a lot of trade discussions and things like that kind of leading into the draft. So it's a good place for those guys to kind of just also plan for the future, but then do a lot of different kind of discussions and stuff.
In terms of the scouting, is Gershon a good example of that? I know he had a great camp there last year, and
yeah,
now he's
exactly. Perfect example of a guy that he was kind of put on the radar at that camp last year, and then every NBA team spent this season following him, and then now he's in this draft process. So it's similar to the Hoop Summit and different events like that, where you get an early look at the guys, and then you kind of plan for the next season, who you might be looking at in next year's draft, and all those types of events give you a kind of an idea of how does the 2017 draft stack up to the 2016 draft, and it starts making you kind of think of the bigger picture as far as how valuable is our picks this season compared to where they could be next year, that type of thing.
Obviously, you're scouting throughout the year, but when you go into a conference finals the way this team did this year, does it change the window of time between the end of season and draft for you guys preparation-wise?
Yeah, big time. We kind of have been cramming a lot of workouts in a much shorter window than we normally do. It's been kind of nice in that everyone kind of knew this is what we're going to be dealing with, and it's honestly a really good problem to have because that means that you're playing longer than you're used to. So, it's just the type of thing where we just have to get used to being busier this time of year than usual, because normally we're not really doing many more workouts than usual. It's just, shorter time. So it's a little bit busier, but I've been doing my best to try and keep the workouts not on the weekends to let our staff have somewhat of a little off season started, but it's a busy time for sure.
I know McGuire told me you guys worked a kid out in Cleveland when you were there, one of Rich Paul's guys, and I know he went over to Chicago. Are you able to get to those other things, the synergy one, the different? You schedule that as well? That's gotta be.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, thankfully a lot of the agents they set their pro days early in the process to where I knew when to try and not schedule any workouts, and then knowing Treviso, the dates for that, we knew to not schedule anything on those. A couple of the agents, they set their dates a little later to where we already had things lined up and we had to kind of, miss out on some of those events. But for the most part, everyone kind of works together in it, and we kind of factor in all those things when we're scheduling these.
Are pro days as effective as ones that you can control?
Not at all. It's clearly they're set up to try and make the players look as good as possible because it's their controlled environment, whereas what we do, we put them through our typical workout. It's not like we're trying to pick out the flaws, right. But if they just kind of come out within our typical workouts, you get a better idea for the player. And then also bringing a guy in, it's not just us and just our small group of scouts that get to see the guy. Our whole staff get to know them up here. Our training staff get to work with them, and the coaches get to see them. So without question, getting a guy in, and even if it's just a 1-on-0, in our environment, and the whole staff gets a feeling for a kid that way.
Is pro day the way the process is headed? I know a few years ago you couldn't get anybody to come to your city.
Yeah.
It
I
seems
don't
to
know.
be-
It's hard to tell. I mean, honestly, I hope it either goes one way or the other. Like, it's kind of tough doing both because of, like we were saying, all the scheduling and stuff. But it does seem as if part of the recruiting tool for some of the agents is we're going to have a pro day and like you'll be the center of attention. It kind of seems like that's the direction of it going. And if that's the case, I hope that, you know, they can be somewhat regulated where maybe all the pro days are in one city or they're all in, you know, one span to where every team can knock the things out all at once. Whereas when we're, you know, going from LA to Florida to New York to Chicago, like there's a lot of travel worked into where it'd be nice if it's regulated and handled. And if that's the case, then it's okay to have both.
You already have a certain or a specific number of younger guys on the roster. Does that increase or change the importance of looking at the maturity level or experience of guys coming in, or do you still weigh that the same?
It doesn't really change anything as far as the types of guys we're looking for. It definitely weighs into, you know, how many rookies do we want to bring in, because we, you know, like last year we had essentially a rotation of 4 or 5 players that spent time in the D-League, and we kind of had them as our development guys. So we kind of probably want to keep that going forward. So we kind of need to look at our roster and see which guys are graduating to the next level out of that, you know, kind of rotation, and then how many spots do we have to kind of fill in on the back end of our roster to kind of keep that.
And knowing you have 905, does that also widen the net of guys that you want to be looking at these workouts, just because?
Yeah, without question. It's you come into this conversation where you see guys and you're like, all right, they may not be on the level of where our draft picks are, but we still really like this kid, and it gives you a whole another group of players to stay interested in for whether it's summer league or training camp or 905, all those different types of things, to where you broaden your view as far as like who could be within the Raptors system.
Anything jump out at you from today's group at all?
You know, it was a high level of playmaking in this group. It was, you know, we kind of knew coming in it wasn't going to be the sharpest shooting bunch, so we didn't really tailor the workout to try and, you know, show that much. It was more of, there's a lot of 3-on-3 and a lot of different like 3-on-2 scenarios where you get to see the defensive rotations and who can make plays on the fly and kind of create out of that. So it turned out to be a really a well-balanced and a pretty competitive workout.